Hey YouTube, Skipper T here. I've recently picked up another knife. This is a Schrade. This is the Extreme Survival full tang clip point fixed blade with a micarta handle survival knife, whatever you want to term it. It is pretty heavy. It is known as the SCHF3N. It is a pretty darn heavy knife, but it's interesting in the fact that it's got molded handles on it. It's got a nice finger chortle up here in the front, so that if you need to get up close and do some fine carving tasks, you should be able to. It's got a chromoly high carbon stainless steel blade on it. And I'm not really sure what high carbon stainless steel is compared to the regular stainless steel, but overall I love the profile on this knife. It is very, very nice, and as you can tell, it's pretty heavy duty. It's a full tang knife. Obviously it's got a lanyard handle on it back here, or a place here, a window breaker, or a lanyard handle. I mean, if it was in your car, you could definitely use this to pop open a window and bust a window. Comes overall, the blade length itself is 6.4 inches long. That comes out to be about 16.2 centimeters for the rest of the world. The handle length is 5.6 inches or 14.2 centimeters. The overall length is 12 inches from point to the back of the handle here, which is 30.4 centimeters. And it's about a 1/4 inch thick, and I think that's what, 5 millimeters roughly, something like that. The only thing I would do to this differently is it does not have a very sharp edge on the spine of the knife. So I would grind this thing down and make sure that this has got a good solid 90-degree angle on it, so that a person could use their fire steel with it. It's a little bit better right here in the finger chortle, but again, that's rounded off so that it's comfortable with your finger. So one or two little modifications that I would make to this. It's got good stippling right here, so that if you're hanging back like this on it, you can get your thumb up in there and it would work pretty good. Again, good finger chortle for up close and fine tasks on this. It came pretty darn sharp out of the box. This was my note piece of paper for all the stats on it. It came out pretty darn sharp. Oop, that didn't work out very good. Okay, so I'm not very good at this part. But as you can see, it came fairly sharp. I would work on that a little bit, put a fine-tuned honed edge on it. But overall, like I said, this thing's got plenty of heft and weight to it. I know a lot of guys out there take their knives and they use them, when they're big and heavy like this, they use them as choppers. They'll grab towards the end here and let it go. And how does that work as a chopper? Pretty darn good, actually. So, that's taking pretty good chunks off of that. There's more than enough weight in there to make that a good chopper. Now, I'm not sitting at a very good angle because my table's kind of high, or my stump top here for our chats are pretty high that way. So that tended to work pretty good. Now, you saw me cutting some of this with a Baco Laplander. This has been sitting out in my backyard. They're frozen. They're a little bit wet. And I think we should see whether or not it'll baton down through it. And if it does, how good of a job it'll do. Put my gloves on just in case. Now, this is a nice little beater stick I made a while back. This is made out of oak, so obviously it should handle that. So if we come in through the top, yeah, made pretty short work of that. Of course, they're nice small pieces. Now we're going to go down through a knot, and we'll see how that works out. We'll just go nice and easy. Yep. No problem, no issues there. Being able to make some kindling wood, not a problem at all. If I was looking for dry wood to start a fire with, I could get into the center of this, get choked up on it, use the finger chortle. Could I use it for some fine wood carving? Oh God, yes. All day long. See how it works on this one here. That is not a problem at all. You know, once you get the blade angle set right, give it a little bit of a push through, that is not a problem. That is coming through beautifully. So, you know, could I get to that point? Use this, make up firewood with this? Absolutely I could, all day long. You know, again, we could just make some very fine fire stick material here. Looks like it'll curve it up nicely. Yeah, now that's maple, because I've got a silver maple tree here in the backyard, and that's where this came from. So, you know, overall, yeah, this big old heavy dude would be a good knife to have with you if you were out and about in the wilderness, okay? So making, you know, finer and finer sticks with this, I just don't see that being an issue in the least. When I first got it, I was a little bit concerned about this edge right here in the front with this drop point, because it narrows down from the full 1/4 inch thickness out here. Obviously, I don't think that's going to be a big issue in the grand scheme of things. It seems to kind of cut down through everything nicely. Get into that knot down here, no problem. Took that apart with relative ease, actually. So the next thing, you know, again, it'll slice out, it'll do those nice little cuts for us. I wouldn't keep cutting them off. Oh yeah, not a problem there. You know, depending on the blade width, whether you get down, choke down close for doing those finer carving tasks. You know, could you make a feather stick with that? Well, there's proof in the pudding right there. Now comes the real test. Let's say you're in a pine environment. We don't have a lot of pine wood where I live, but every time I get the opportunity or I see one falls down in the neighborhood or somebody's cutting one up, I go and cut out as much fat wood out of it as I can. So let's just see how it does trimming off some of that pine impregnated fat wood. Again, I'm all chortled up and using the chortle on this, so consider this to be a nice fine carving task here. Yep, I can get some paper thin cuts. Yeah, guys, that's not going to be an issue. You know what, I got to tell you, overall, I'm kind of happy with the way that's working out. Cut that off of there. Boy, that's some nice fat wood right there, guys. That would strike up a fire without any problem at all. Again, a couple of modifications I'd make is I'd cut the back of this off. I've got one of those tool sharpeners, the little triangular shaped sharpeners. I think I would run this along the back on there. If I didn't have one of those, I'd take a fine file and I would file that off, because it is slightly rounded, and especially on the edges here. Now, that's going to make it extremely difficult, if not impossible, to strike a ferrocerium rod with it. And that would be one of the things that I would want to have, you know, in my kit with me at all time. In fact, it is something I carry with me in my kits at all time. So I would make that modification and grind that off. I don't think I would do that in the finger chortle, just so that you've got the comfort aspect of that with it. Now, the other thing I'm going to say about this knife that I am not a huge fan of, and this seems to be kind of typical with the Schrades, is this handle is extremely wide. When I buy gloves, I buy medium gloves. I don't feel like I get a firm all the way around grip on this thing, okay? It's just a little bit wide, a little bit too wide as far as I'm concerned with my, you know, medium-sized hands on it. Will it work? Oh, absolutely. When I've got gloves on, it feels a little bit better, but still not like I'm in 100% control of it. You know, I get a little bit of slippage because I don't feel like I'm getting a good solid grip on it just due to the width. Now the nice thing about this is they use torque screws on here instead of rivets. So I can take this apart and probably grind down take the handle off, and on the flat side I just run it on my belt sander. And I think I would take probably 1/8 of an inch off on either side, and then put the screws back in it, a little Loctite in there, and see how it does. In fact, I may make that modification and come back and do another video. The other side about this is the sheath that comes with it. It's a great sheath. It's got a plastic insert here. What's nice about this particular knife is at the bottom of the plastic insert, it has a screw that goes all the way through the sheath. So you could, in theory, pull, take the screw out, pull the plastic encasement part for the blade of your knife, and then flip it around so that if you're left or right-handed, then you could make that adjustment for it. It's got a nice pouch on the outside here, fairly large. You could put a ferrocerium rod in here. You could put, a small, like a stone or something for sharpening your knives in there. Ferrocerium rod, you could chop several of these things down and put them in here, the fat wood pieces. So that's nice that you can have that on there. It's got a nice wide 2.25 inch opening that you could put it on virtually any belt that's out there, maybe even a web belt of some kind. It's got some molly straps on the back so that you could, you could make it a horizontal carry on a vest or on a belt of some kind. And going down both sides of this Cordova shield here, it's got a bunch of grommet holes in it. So again, multiple ways that you can fasten this. Whether you want to wear it on your belt, it's got a big loop here that you could tie it off down on your leg type thing. But multiple ways that you can mount this particular blade. Overall, like I said, I really like this knife. It's heavy. It's a beast. If I was going to have a one-tool option, this would not be a bad choice. Like I said, the only thing I would have to do is I'd have to grind off the inside of these handles because I want to maintain the outside of it, and the grip and the stippling that they've put on the outside. But I'd grind that flat side down a little bit and make it just a little bit thinner for my smaller to medium-sized hands. But that would be my only real complaint with it. The finger grips on this are in a good spot. Like I said, there's a lot of things about this. This knife is pretty well balanced, kind of right where you would hold it here on your finger. So again, it's really kind of a nice blade. I really like it. Seems to have cut down through some wood very nicely. Overall, I think this would be an excellent option. Carry a sharpening stone with you. Maybe put a bit more of an edge on it, although I got to tell you what, that still feels pretty sharp. It is definitely sharp enough to do the tasks at hand. Whether it cuts the piece of paper like a razor, that's probably more my effect on it. Not very good at that. But it'll definitely hold a nice sharp edge on it. And we've pounded around with it out here. It's got the weight and heft that it would take to do some good chopping if that's what you want to, if you're looking for a knife that's capable of doing those kind of chores around the campsite, this is definitely a good option. Obviously that's making short work of that elm, or maple rather. So, yeah, I kind of like this one. Anyway, guys, they're fairly affordable. You can read about them all day long on Amazon. You can see all the different YouTube videos that are out there. And anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Like, subscribe. If you're inclined to, remember, keep your eyes open, keep your heads up. We'll see you outside.